Some of you may have wished to see the publication of the full report as I received it. However, there are several reasons why I've decided not to publish it. The first and the most important is that those who were invited to give evidence were assured by the panel that their evidence would be treated in strict confidence. I believe this was a wise decision which enabled many people to speak without reserve to the visitation panel. Secondly, the report has been designed for me as the bishop, and full publication would run the risk of the panel's observations being misinterpreted or misunderstood out of context. That is why I welcome this opportunity to talk to you about it and also to take any questions that you may have. It is good that the report has much to say which is positive. It recognises many good and encouraging things in the life of our cathedral. At the same time, it acknowledges the pain and disturbance that some have felt under the recent pressures of cathedral life, and especially since the pandemic. It therefore makes a number of recommendations, which I will share with you shortly. In their report, the panel emphasised their impression of a cathedral staff team deeply committed to the life and vision of the cathedral. And they recognised also that there are many organisations and constituencies which value the cathedral enormously and look to the cathedral as a gathering place for many communities across the diocese. So I want to add my own personal thanks to all of you for your work and your contribution to the life of this cathedral. I know that recent years have been especially demanding, following COVID, changes in leadership, and many other challenges which have come our way. My purpose in sharing the content of the report is to enable us to move forward together, to build trust, and to capture a vision for the next stage of the cathedral's life. The Visitation Report explores in some depth the cathedral's role as a diocesan institution. It recognises that cathedrals must take account of the leadership agenda of the diocese as it changes, and it must also take account of its role as the seat of the diocesan bishop. In a very large diocese like ours, with its huge demographic spread from inner city East London to rural North Essex, a cathedral is bound to be stretched if it seeks to be a place where very different cultures and communities can find a spiritual home. The report recognises this challenge for our cathedral and acknowledges the achievement of Nicholas Henshaw in seeking to fulfil the remit he was given, both to stretch the cathedral in its role for the whole diocese and as a credible partner in the public square. Our civic leaders in the city and the county have clearly given appreciative evidence to the panel about their experience of major events in the cathedral and of the value they place on its life and witness. However, the report also recognises the price that has been paid for this ambitious agenda, acknowledging that it led to unrealistic expectations being placed upon some key members of staff and on job descriptions and responsibilities, which sometimes were stretched beyond what is reasonable or sustainable. So, the Visitation Report explores in some detail the role of cathedral governance, and especially of the chapter, in ensuring the well-being of all the staff as agendas change and new challenges emerge. This is especially important at this moment as the cathedral prepares to develop its governance structures to be compliant with the Cathedral's Measure 2021. In summary, the measure emphasises the role of the chapter in ensuring that appointments, staff accountabilities, financial controls, and a developing vision are all subject to the kind of open but rigorous scrutiny which you might expect in any comparable charitable or voluntary sector organisation. Let me share with you the 5 key findings in relation to chapter which the report emphasises. Number 1. The chapter should have a role in reviewing the job descriptions of residential canons and in monitoring the performance of their roles. It is clear that the panel were left with concerns about the recent experience of 2 of our former residential canons and have pointed to specific ways in which going forward appointments can more effectively be monitored and supported. More widely, a new nominations committee will be established by the new cathedral constitution and statutes required under the new measure, and that will have a role advising the chapter on certain matters relating to recruitment and training. Number 2. The panel is clear that the Chief Financial Officer has maintained proper control of expenditure and receipts and that appropriate internal auditing procedures are in place. However, they raised some concerns about the extent to which the chapter has actively engaged in strategic financial planning. They recommend that the Chief Financial Officer should be part of the team that reports directly to the COO and not to the Dean. Third, the panel strongly recommended that there should be closer working between the Cathedral Safeguarding Officer and the Diocesan Safeguarding Team to ensure that those responsible for safeguarding the Cathedral are given the support they need for safeguarding to function well. And I know that progress is already being made in this area. Number 4. The panel has raised questions about the effectiveness of communication between the chapter, the staff, and the cathedral congregation. While it is clear that some matters must be kept confidential, the panel formed the impression that some members of staff felt they were working in an information vacuum, and this was echoed by some members of the congregation. Accordingly, the panel recommend that work is put into the development of an effective and sustained internal communication system. And 5th, the panel raised questions about the extent to which the emerging situation in the cathedral's music department has been adequately monitored by the chapter. They recognise that music of a high quality has contributed enormously to the functioning of the cathedral, and that in general a high standard has been maintained. However, they expressed concern about the absence of a full-time canon preceptor since 2017, which over time has led to some fragility developing in the music department. The panel also want to encourage a movement towards a proper complement of director, sub-organist and organ scholar, which could lead to a more proactive recruitment of front-row choristers whose numbers have reduced over recent years. The legal requirements of the new cathedral's measure mean that there will be new appointments to the chapter to strengthen the skills mix which will be needed going forward. One of those appointments, of the senior non-executive member of chapter, is made by the bishop after consultation with the chapter. The senior non-executive member will have a particular responsibility in ensuring that concerns in chapter are properly represented to me as the bishop. The report recognises the contributions which chapter has made towards this new culture of governance already, and the significant steps which it has taken in recent years. However, there have been, as some of you will know, times when staff have felt under significant pressure, which has not been properly addressed and has resulted in some leaving their roles without feeling that their concerns have been heard. So the report also draws attention to the need for closer working between the cathedral and the diocesan staff, especially in the areas of safeguarding and HR, and points to the fact that if resources were pooled more effectively, some of the more painful experiences of staff members in recent years might have been avoided. In a few moments, I'll share with you the explicit recommendations for action which the panel have provided and which I've discussed in some detail with the interim dean, the COO and the diocesan secretary. However, before I do that, I want to share with you 3 other observations which the panel made. The first is about the way in which all institutions develop their own culture. The panel observed that in healthy organisations, it is possible to challenge the leadership without being perceived to be a threat to the leader or to the direction of travel. This can be particularly important in a small institution like a cathedral like ours, where those with passionate commitment to the cathedral's life and ministry are working in close proximity day by day. That is why healthy debate within the cathedral executive and within the chapter, which may include constructive, robust challenge, are so necessary for the life and well-being of the cathedral. Another observation from the visitation has been that current accountability processes have led to a situation where staff have not always known clearly what their responsibilities are, nor have they received any feedback as to the effectiveness of their work. Let me quote from the report at this point. I quote, "The very loyalty, collegiality and sense of shared spiritual purpose that animates the cathedral community seems also to have functioned as pressure to accept unsustainable workloads and stressful work contexts without complaint. At the same time, unwelcome behaviours have sometimes gone unchecked in the absence of accountability and solid processes." End of quote. So I hope that going forward there will be up-to-date and accurate role descriptions and regular and routine ministerial reviews for all clergy in the cathedral, and that the lay staff will receive effective and regular appraisals from the CRO. Finally, the report examines the relationship between the diocesan bishop and the cathedral. It will not surprise you to know that this can be a delicate relationship, given that under the cathedral's measure, the leadership of the cathedral lies clearly with the dean and his or her colleagues, and governance with the chapter. The bishop is not directly involved in either of these processes, and let me be absolutely clear that I have no desire to try and become involved in that way, even if time permitted. However, the cathedral is the location of the bishop's seat, and the primary setting in which the gathering ministry of the bishop takes place. It is regarded by the wider community as in some ways the bishop's church, and in that sense I have responsibility for its welfare and well-being. In my demanding and full life as your diocesan bishop, I'm also aware that I need a spiritual home where I can come and pray and be nourished by the scriptures and the sacraments. I hope that this cathedral can feel at home with its bishop, and that my prayerful presence here will help you to feel at home with me. What I'd like to do now is to take you through the recommendations and explain a little of the way in which I expect that they will be progressed by the chapter, led by the interim dean and working closely with the cathedral CRO and other colleagues. A paper copy of this statement, which I'm making to you now, will be available for you to pick up should you wish to do so after this meeting is over. I'm not entirely sure how many of you are there are 50 paper copies available, but in any case it'll also be published on both the diocesan and the cathedral websites, as well as being shared more widely, including in the View later on today. I also look forward to taking your questions, any questions you may have, in a few moments. Above all, I hope that the outcome of this report and of this meeting will be a renewed confidence in the life of the cathedral and its high calling in mission, ministry and service.